Hey guys, Zandi here. Today we're going to chat about three different areas. Mazeppa, Coffee Bay, and Mdumbi. Let's put me on the clock. So these are some of the best areas that I really enjoyed, and I'm actually so excited to talk about all three of them. So I stayed 2 nights in each area. And I think I stayed in Coffee Bay. I stayed 2 nights in Mazeppa, 4 nights in Coffee Bay, and 2 nights in Mdumbi, which was absolutely amazing. I really loved it. And I'm looking forward to going back to these 3 different areas. So I stayed in Mazeppa for 2 nights, and it was in Mazeppa that I met 2 shark fishermen. And it was so interesting learning about the shark fishing industry and realizing that they actually don't eat the sharks that they catch. It is actually catch and release. And it was such an incredible place to learn, because I met these 2 humans who, introduced me to this other human who helps them fish sharks. And it was such a different place. And again, I was still following the ugly spell of cloudy weather, rainy weather, lightning, windy. So again, the waters were inaccessible for me as a freediver, as a spearo. So that was just that. So Mazeppa was hanging out with these 2 humans and enjoying the most beautiful. I caught the one most beautiful sunrise on the one day when the clouds did allow, but generally there wasn't much of that. What is Mazeppa? So Mazeppa is a little area along the Transkei route, you would say. And I found the place that I stayed at on Safari. Actually, I did not find it on booking.com. And it was a little cottage that is called Sunrise Cottage. And I think it would have the most amazing sunrises. I got to catch one on the one day. Sunrise started at about 4:30 in the morning. And by the time that the weather app said the sun would be coming up, which was at 10 to 5, the sun was gone. It was behind the clouds and it was finished. So that was actually amazing. And the place where I stayed, you could actually just walk down the rocks and you've got access to the beach, and that's where you would swim and all of that, which would have been so amazing to do. So I went out with the fishing guys, and they had a fishing line out and caught fish, and luckily I don't know how I would have reacted. So I'm glad that I didn't get to see a shark being fished out the water for whatever reason. I don't know if I have a stomach for that yet. So that was actually so interesting to be a part of, and catch fish. And yeah, it was lovely because I met these 2 strangers that I started spending my days with and having dinners with. And I learned how to fillet even more. I filleted a big cob, so I scaled it down, gutted it, and got it ready for dinner, which was actually, for me, such an incredible achievement, because that has been a large part of my trip, learning how to become more self-dependent, being able to get your food from the ocean, being able to forage, to spear, to be able to prepare that food afterwards. And I think these are all important things. And I must have scaled and gutted that fish in under 5 minutes. And it was actually quite funny because the one guy just turned around and he said, "I guess you and that knife are well acquainted." And I think there is a level of well acquaintedness, and I'm really happy to be learning these skills that are so important for me specifically. So that was Mazeppa. There is a hotel, Mazeppa Hotel, in the area. It looks old style, and I think they are open now, but I think they are only largely serving specialized food to their guests. So I think that's something to take note of. If you're going to be going into Mazeppa, you want to already have bought your food in town. So Mazeppa, Coffee Bay, Mdumbi. You want to already have your food that you've bought along the way, because there aren't really shops accessible around that area. And the place where I stayed, I had access to a kitchen, but I didn't really have coffee or tea and all of that stuff. So you had to make sure that you had that available for yourself. Mazeppa is largely a fishing town, so most of the accommodation is actually made for, when you get back with your fish, you're able to get it ready and put it on a braai. Coffee Bay was absolutely amazing for me. So it was 2 bits. I met an incredible spearfishing human, and he took me out spearfishing a few times. But what made this encounter incredible is that the waters are so wild in the Eastern Cape that you could never imagine the difficulty it was getting in and the difficulty it was getting out. And the difficulty it was getting caught in 3 riptides on 3 different days. Wow. So, I think it's such an interesting learning experience. And I think that's why it's always important to speak to locals before you get into the water. So in Coffee Bay, I got my accommodation through Airbnb. I hated my accommodation. Like, that is a talk for another day. The hosts opened up the space and then they said it wasn't open. And the place where I ended up staying, on the last night when I was there, it rained a lot and it started dripping onto the pillow next to me. I have a feeling that's probably where I got my little tick bite fever that surfaced 5 or 6 days later. And the hosts were just horrible. But on the other side of that was this beautiful human that I found who was, teaching me a little bit more about spearfishing and teaching me how to navigate these wild Eastern Cape waters. And he then opened me up to his circle, and it was just such a beautiful space. I loved it. And, freaking gave me pawpaws off his tree. It was really, really beautiful. Yeah, and I think that's what I want to share. So what can you do in Coffee Bay? There's a place called Mapuzi Caves, which is close to Coffee Bay. And you can cliff jump, you can, swim in the ocean, you can go on hikes. There's quite a few restaurants that are there. I didn't find many vegan and vegetarian options, but what I did find is that you can just scrape the cheese off whatever it is that you're trying to eat. Pizza is sometimes your most accessible thing. And that was that. And I think for me, it was more of, Coffee Bay was a lot of learning about getting comfortable and confident in wild waters. And to be caught in a riptide is no small thing, because trying to swim out of it is a nightmare. And even though you're trying to swim parallel to shore, good luck trying to find your parallel to even begin. So I had, on the one day, I just got tired. I got tired of trying to swim out. And Quentin was just saying, do you want to hold on to my ankle and I'll try to pull us out? But we were both stuck in it. So, and we eventually made it out. And I think it was an incredible learning lesson, of the times that we were caught in there. All 3 times. And I think it is just such an incredible learning opportunity, learning to spear in these wild waters, learning to be confident with my spearing gun. And, on some of the days we weren't lucky in the water, and that's okay. But I guess, it's a learning process, and I think that is an amazing thing. So that was Coffee Bay for me, and it was absolutely amazing. Mdumbi was amazing. Mdumbi was my first backpacking experience. I think we must have been 8 in the same room. It was a little bit weird, but at the same time, a little bit not, because almost it felt like as you walk in, your entry is, how did you get here? And everybody's sharing their stories. Maybe Mdumbi could have been its own share, but I think it's still a beautiful, space that I want to share about. And everybody was sharing about these road trips that they started taking, and here we all end up being in Mdumbi. Mdumbi is a place that is 2 hours before Port St. John's, and it is a beautiful area. Beautiful mountains, beautiful beaches, beautiful swimming beaches, and the ladies actually harvest the oysters off the rocks there. And there is, the local fishermen sell their fish. That's where I actually made a decision that I would actually buy fish from a local fisherman and eat from there. The backpackers experience was lovely. The people who run the backpackers are lovely. The space was clean. The restrooms are clean. The community is well supported and is a part of the backpackers. So they took us out. The community takes you out to Mapuzi caves, to go cliff jumping. Of the many accessible activities that you can do in the area, the community is a large part of it, and I loved that the most about it. It was beautiful. Mdumbi Backpackers also has, they have coffee on site. They prepare food every day, so you can let them know if you want to eat with them or not. A lot of people brought their own food. A lot of people were tenting. A lot of people, there's different accommodation options. So there were people in tents, people who were sharing rooms, people who had their caravans out. And it was actually, interestingly enough, quite full. And it was just beautiful to share space with all of these beautiful people. So if you have an opportunity, and I got connected to Mdumbi Backpackers through the people that I met in Gansbaai. So it's actually amazing how this has been a beautiful circle. So if you are in the area, definitely go check it out because the people are beautiful. And with that said, I would like to close this journal entry. Thanks for watching. Cheers.